Hello, friends. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Elliot Parker, and whether you're a writer, a reader, or just a lover of words, I invite you to stop what you're doing and join me for a page break. Have you ever wondered how books get turned into film, or how books get turned into television series, or how a book gets turned into an HBO miniseries, and how that process works? Well, that's what we're going to talk about here today, and I'm so glad to have Luke Oberholtzer with us here today to take a page break with us to talk about this, how this process works, how an author goes about getting this process started, and some things to keep in mind in terms of what's involved in the process, but also some misconceptions that you may have if you're a writer or an aspiring writer about how this process works in terms of getting your work turned into a play, a movie, a miniseries, whatever it might be. And Luke Oberholtzer joins us today here on Page Break. He received his associate's degree in screenwriting and a certificate in film, video, and media from the Colorado Film School before graduating from Santa Fe University Art and Design with his Bachelor of Fine Arts in Story Development. During college, he was hired by Main Man Films to write Single Track the Movie. And as a screenwriter, he's got a slate of projects in various stages of development with several different production companies. He's always looking for more producers, financiers, and distributors to help him bring those stories to life for a worldwide audience. And we should also mention that he spent several years working for Open Gate Pictures as the director of development. So he's got a lot of experience with this whole process of getting literary work transferred into film, movies, television, and all that. So Luke, welcome to Page Break. So glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I want to pitch a scenario to you, and then you tell me what's wrong with it and why it doesn't work. Because I think this is kind of the scenario a lot of folks have when they think about, okay, I'm a writer and I want to have my book or my memoir or whatever it is turned into a movie. Or I'm an aspiring writer and maybe I've got a draft finished that's not published, but a lot of people have read it and said, gosh, that would make a great movie. I could see, Ryan Gosling playing that character, and I could see, Annette O'Toole playing this character and all of that. So let me pitch this scenario to you and have you tell me what's wrong with it. I've got a published work. I want to see it made into film. I've got people who have read it. Both maybe people inside my circle and outside my circle that have told me it's going to be a great movie, be a great TV series, whatever. So I go online, I Google all the production companies out in California and maybe some that are in New York, and I create these wonderful packages. I send them a copy of my book. I send them a press release. I send them a press kit. I target it directly to who it tells me is the contact person on the website associated with that production company. And I know that I'm going to hear back from that individual or that company, maybe within 6 months. So what's wrong with that scenario? Why does that not work?
So I would say that's a blind query, which is where you kind of go wrong to begin with. Especially with film, I'm not as familiar with the publishing world, but you want to get someone interested in your work. You can't just send them something without their permission, essentially, to accept it. So if I were to say, "Hey, Elliot, I have this awesome screenplay," I wouldn't just email you and say, "Here's my screenplay, read it." I would say, "Hey, Elliot, I have this great screenplay. It's about this. Would you be interested in reading it?" And then you, as the gatekeeper at whatever company, would say, "Yes, I would love to look at it," or "No, I would not." If you send it to them without permission, per se, they will just throw it in the trash, delete it. They won't even open it. And that's for a lot of legal reasons. They're essentially protecting themselves. Their lawyers, if they're at Disney, will yell at them if they open something unsolicited. And even things like there was a case recently, but I saw a Hollywood manager was like, "This is why I don't even respond to emails anymore when people query me, because you even acknowledge that they sent you something shows that it might be essentially on your radar or that you viewed it." So for all intents and purposes, you have to query and basically ask permission to send your work. Otherwise, there's just a legal liability there that just creates a mess of epic proportions, where anyone can say anyone stole their work.
And I know from talking to you and working with you that this situation of production companies, producers, film companies, whoever it may be, they get almost as many queries, I think, as publishers and agents do from authors. So there is sort of a process, right? That you have to go through, and you kind of alluded to it. Just like, when you query an agent, if you're a writer and you're trying to get a literary agent, if you're querying a publisher to get them to look at your manuscript, there is kind of a process, right? And there's a process for this as well.
Yeah, and I mean, even like this is a really stupid example I just thought of, but I could query Disney and be like, "Hey, I have this great idea for a Snow White live action movie based on the fairy tale in the public domain." And then in 2 years, they're gonna come out with Snow White, the live action version, like they have all their classics. And then I could be like, "Oh, see, they responded to me, they stole my idea." So that's just a very bad example, but essentially all these big companies are working on so many projects in so many different places. If a lot of writers think something comes out and was stolen from them, but in fact, it's just same brainwaves kind of on different tracks in a way. Because storytelling, as unique as it can be, there's a lot of blurred lines even with everything in Hollywood.
Yeah. And I know there's all kinds of writing texts and everything out there that says there's only 8 or 9 tropes that you can use
Yeah.
in a fiction story. And if you think about any book that you've read or any film that you've seen, and you look at those 8 or 9 tropes, you've seen parts of them, all of them, or 2 or 3 of them used in a particular film. So I think you're right about that too. That you may think, well, they stole my idea, but you've just kind of taken from the trope, and they've taken another part of the trope and blended it together, and here we go with a particular project. So I want to ask you about your company, Legacy Entertainment. You're the founder and owner and director of that company. Tell us a little bit about Legacy Entertainment, why you started it, why you founded it, and what can it do to help writers and folks with ideas and maybe written projects, either completed or in the pipeline, get them a little bit closer to seeing their work on screen.
Yeah, so Legacy Entertainment is a screenplay and project development company. We help writers of all caliber as they try to get the best out of their idea. So we offer a lot of different offerings, but the three big things that I always try to hone in on are script notes. Those can be for just kind of a one-stop shop for anyone of any caliber that has scripts. So whether you're a new writer or a seasoned, everyone's always looking for notes with actionable feedback to help them improve their draft and get it to the next level. And one thing that I've kind of listened to about different coverage companies is they always feel impersonal, or like someone might have read the first 10 pages and then just skip to the end and miss the theme. I just wanna make sure that I give writers feedback on every few pages and, to show I'm reading it, but also I do it in real time as if I'm the viewer. And I just want to help the writer kinda take those characters, dialogue, story, the structure, and kinda give them as much feedback in one document where they can be like, "Okay, I can read this, implement it into my next draft, and then have the next draft be better than the one it came with." The second thing we do is help with pitch decks. Those have become a lot more common in recent years. I know a lot of the producers I talk to that are always saying, "Send me the pitch deck." I've ran a bunch of kind of TV rom-coms in that genre that are in various stages, that I have out there, and they have the same formulaic structure, the ones I've written, and a producer will be like, "Do you have a pitch deck for the second and third one?" I'm like, "No, but it looks like the first one," but they still won't accept it because it's a different project and they wanna see a pitch deck. So, pitch decks can help the visual representation of the film, they can bring it up to its kind of best version by showing what it can be. I know that I've worked with some projects that were not always the best, but the pitch decks came out, and I know for me, I was like, "Oh, I really see what the idea is now. I see what it can be." And I think that's important with pitch decks, and we have ones that are fully customized. We also have template-based, but the customized ones can really bring out the best version of a script for people and can help sell it and sell the vision, even if it would need a different writer in the future. And the third thing we do is screenplay development from bottom to top, or the top. That's usually for first time writers and writers that haven't written too many under their belt, that's more of an educational process. So that's to help writers kind of understand structure and story and characters and really take things from a ground level with our documents and our pamphlets. And really that's the version where they learn the most and kind of get a crash course, a master class. And that takes several months, just depending on the person and stuff, but that gives you the most notes, the most amount of feedback, the most development meetings one-on-one with me. It's almost like if you were to go and take a college course for no college credit, obviously, but uh it'd be a one-on-one experience. So that's kind of what our three big things are. And then we offer alternate options like storyboarding, animatics to kind of show a scene brought to life. We're doing screenplay posters now. Those are part of our marketing initiative. We've also added in a branding, which is for writers to kind of learn how to behave professionally and in a business culture. That is as important these days as your writing because if people don't want to collaborate and work with you, they'll go find someone with just as much talent who's willing to work with you. So really, we're kind of broken into the development side, and then we also have marketing and branding that we've kind of come and are experimenting with to kind of give writers that full package for when they interview or talk to a producer and just how to relate to them and kind of be able to answer the questions that they know are going to be expected of them.
So if I'm the writer and I'm approaching Legacy Entertainment, I don't necessarily need to have a finished book manuscript necessarily. I could have part of it or just an idea. And something else you emphasize, this is several months. This is not something that happens in 3 weeks. This is not something that happens, in 60 days.
Yeah.
This is something that, if someone comes to you to work with you and work with your company, they need to understand this is a several month process. It's just not going to happen overnight.
Correct, and that's always the thing that I think is beneficial, especially with something like this. I remember in school, it was always like, "Oh, you have to get up at 10 AM," which makes me sound really lazy, but, you're like, "Oh, I have to go to class, I have attendance," but with us, it's, "Hey, we'll work at your timeline." It's a six-month process, and it's for people that have a page of notes, it's people that have an idea, we can help them formulate that idea into more to become a story. So it's you can take whatever you have. Some people, one client I had basically had pictures of her grandma that from World War II and has story kind of revolving around a true story of her family and how they met. And all she had was some photographs and a little bit of a true story behind it of how they met in World War II Germany. And we took that, we took the real life events here, there, and everywhere and put together an awesome treatment for it. So really it's come with whatever you have and we can help you out. And obviously the more the better, but we can help you take that little nugget of idea and form it into a coherent story because that's how all ideas start is just kind of with that nugget. And then you go, what if this happens? What if that happens? Oh, here's a character. And then you just build off that. And eventually you have something that you can work with.
Very good. And so, after someone works with you, after they have contracted with you to do the script notes, to do the pitch deck, to do the full project development, really from start to finish, what are they then prepared to do with their project in terms of trying to get that at least looked at or considered by a producer or production company or something like that? What happens, because you all really serve kind of an important bridge function
Yeah.
between wanting to approach these folks and actually getting attention by these folks. What should someone expect after they're finished working with you, after the 6 months have come by and you've done what they've needed or what they've asked for? Then what would be the next step? What do you commonly see as next steps with your clients?
So then they pretty much take it out into the world. And the thing that I always kind of emphasize is you've put in the work and you've put in the effort and the blood, sweat, and tears. And now you can put your best foot forward as you approach these producers and approach these companies. So it's really making sure that you have the best possible version of your own project. And sometimes in those people that work on their first script with us, no matter how hard they work, it always takes more than one script to really get the hang and flow of screenwriting. So sometimes it's about giving them the tools and those educational tools to write their first script and put together their first screenplay so that their fifth or sixth, they'll have the tools they had from this time working with me and be like, oh, now it starts to click as you kind of get that muscle memory or that screenplay muscle memory and just it improves your process throughout the long term. So that's where the educational part comes in because I'm sure your first novel or the first time you wrote a short story, you look back and you're like, oh man, this is really bad. But now you're like, okay, yeah, I got the hang of this. So it like anything in life, your first time is not always going to be the best, but you still can go back to that at a later point, but you've gotten the skills also to improve and to build upon that in your next script.
Very good. We're speaking with Luke Oberholtzer here on Page Break. He is the president and CEO and developer at Legacy Entertainment. And so, Luke will come back in just a second to talk more about this. But I want to put you on the hot seat for some rapid fire questions to give our audience a chance to get to know you a little bit better as the person outside of Legacy Entertainment.
Okay,
So, are you
perfect.
ready to be put on the hot seat for some rapid fire questions?
Possibly, we'll see.
Okay. Okay. So I've kind of geared this around film and television since that's kind of the professional area that you work in. So, given everything that we've been through with the COVID pandemic and all of that, my first question: are you still a movie theater watcher, or would you rather stream it at home?
I hate to say it, but I'd rather watch at home. I think there's certain movies that are made for the big screen still. Top Gun, Maverick obviously, was amazing to see on the screen. Dune, I really made an effort to go see that instead of pay for HBO Max, and see it for free or however you want form that thought. Um, but I prefer watching at home. I prefer the intimacy. I prefer being able to lay in bed and watch on my laptop. Uh, I like the home now, and I think part of it is just you can control the environment at home as well. Whereas in the theater, you're like, are there going to be noisy kids? Is there going to be a kid that someone brings into a horror movie that's rated R? And there's just so many variables and the price too. Going out after popcorn drinks and movie and everything, it becomes expensive. And I have nothing against the theater. I want to see it thrive and I'll still see certain movies there, but um I've kind of become a homebody.
Very good. Okay, for movie snacks, popcorn or candy?
Ooh, can I say both?
Sure.
Both.
Excellent. What is a movie that everybody should see?
American Pie probably isn't the one that everybody should see, but it's one of my favorites to this day. Um, Gladiator is a classic that I think is great that everyone can see. Family friendly that everyone should see is That Thing You Do, and Pitch Perfect. I don't know why those two came to mind, but they're family friendly. You can watch it of all ages, and they're two of the most rewatchable films ever. I typically don't like rewatching films over and over and over and over because some people are like, "Oh, I've seen that movie 100 times." I'm like, I could never do that. But That Thing You Do in Pitch Perfect, they're kind of ones that I'm always in the mood for and can always have. I never ever got as much writing done when Pitch Perfect was on HBO for a while because I would just turn it on and listen to it in the background. And then they took it off HBO for a while and my productivity went down, so I blame them for that. But those two I recommend everyone sees for sure.
What is the worst or one of the worst movies you've seen?
I cannot comment on that, but probably a lot of independent filmmakers that brag on social media.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Um, Let me ask you about just some other things not really related to the media. If you're not working and not watching movies, and it's a Saturday afternoon, what might we find you doing?
Probably napping or watching TV. Those are pretty much it. Hanging with friends is always fun. But yeah, I mean, I like reading a good book, even though I haven't lately. But I'm about business a lot of times, whether it's, I mean, I love the entertainment industry. So, I mean, I'm always thinking about it. And that shows with how much I watch weekly.
Would you rather have as a pet a dog or a cat?
Hippopotamus.
Which might go after the dog or the
Probably,
cat.
but a dog of those two options.
Favorite food?
I like the restaurant Gayukaku a lot. It's Japanese. And so that's probably my favorite. PF Chang's we go to almost every week on Fridays for lunch. That's also a favorite of mine.
If we were to gather a group of people in a room and ask them to tell us their favorite thing about you, what do you think they would say?
Uh, I have no idea. Probably how amazing I am in every single way, and how good of a script development I am, and how I was worth their investment of money. So probably that.
All right. Congratulations, Luke Oberholtzer. You're off the hot seat. Thanks for participating in those rapid fire questions. That was great.
Thank you. Good
So
to be on the hot seat.
that gives our audience just a chance to get to know you a little bit better. But I wanted to go back to something that you actually brought up in the rapid fire responses that leads to my next question. You know, when we talk about books and publishing, we talk about all of these different avenues for publication, from self-publishing to hybrid publishing to university press publishing to small press, traditional, so on and so forth. And I know there's a variety of different levels of film and television production that someone's project could get picked up for. Can you walk us through a few of those? Like you mentioned, independent film kind of being at the, I don't want to say at the bottom level, but at the lower rung, all the way up. Can you walk us through some of those levels and tell us what makes them, what makes an independent film a film? What makes sort of a mid-sized or medium-sized production? What makes 20th Century Fox? Can you walk us through some of those examples?
Yeah, so this isn't really my area of expertise just to start out, so some people might disagree with me, but for me, I always think like I could shoot a movie after this and make it 90 minutes of me walking around home and putting it on YouTube and saying I'm a filmmaker. And not to completely diss the publishing world, but to me, that's the equivalent of just writing something on Microsoft Word and then posting it on Amazon self-publishing and being like, okay, I'm a published author now. And while that's true, it's kind of the bottom of rung of the thing where anyone can do it, from my understanding. Especially when I say you can post on YouTube. Amazon Prime, I believe they'll accept mostly anything, and you can do kind of tiers where it's free or where I think you can do rentals. I'm not sure the exact parameters of all that, but I know that they've changed their requirements over the last few years, but it's not too difficult from what I understand to get your movie on Amazon Prime as well. What you really want is a distribution company to pick up your film and sell it and sell the worldwide rights so that it can play in territories overseas. And there's also the ability to go on Redbox or be featured in Walmart or Target and have like the physical copies that aren't as popular anymore. So there's kind of different tiers, and then there's places where you complete a feature film and you might say, "Hey Netflix, I have this feature film. Are you interested?" And then Netflix is like, "Yes, we want to buy that." And then they put their stamp on it and it becomes a Netflix original. And then you see the boom Netflix original Legacy Entertainment someday. And then you have your film. And while you did all the quote unquote work to make the film, Netflix then comes in on the distribution level, buys it outright, and puts their stamp on it. And for the people that don't understand the business, they think Netflix was on along the whole way. So a lot of these bigger companies are have relationships with smaller production companies who actually make the movie and do all the groundwork, and then they see the potential in it where they can make money off the distribution or the selling of it. And then that's where you see like the big production company come in, like a Netflix. And so that's kind of how it's done in a nutshell. It's really interesting though, but as a producer or a writer or a director, you want to gain relationships with those smaller mid-tier or low-tier companies that might have a relationship with a Netflix so that you can say, "Hey, film my movie," then you can use, your relationship with Netflix for your previous movie to see if they're interested in this one. So it's really all about relationship, but very rarely, unless it's your $200 million gray man with Gosling and Chris Evans, Netflix isn't really putting in the money like that unless it's one of their like original series or original from the beginning. They'll mostly get in on the back end.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you for explaining that, because I think we wonder about that, and we see this as consumers of film. They're independent films, or you'll see a preview for a film that was at the Cannes Independent Film Festival, or it was at the Toronto Independent Film Festival, and then all of a sudden it shows up on Netflix, and you're thinking, well, how did it get from there to there? So that was
Yeah.
that was good information to know. And I just want to ask you just sort of a objective question, or kind of a broad-based question about all of this. We have all of these streaming services. We have Netflix and Apple TV and Hulu and all of these things now. There's such I think, places for people to get things
Yeah.
produced and aired and picked up by companies. But do you think we have reached a saturation point? I mean, are we at the point where we're going to run out of good content to fill up all of these channels? I've always felt like, as a writer, we're going to get to a point where Amazon's going to stop, just letting anybody go on there and put anything on there that they want to. I think that day's coming. Now, that may not be next year. It might not be in 2 or 3 years, may not be in 5 years, but I can see a moment where Amazon's like, this has become unwieldy, and we've got all this stuff on here, and some of it, a lot of it's not good stuff. It's just like you said, somebody who
Yeah.
sat down and hammered out a script or a story and put it up here, and now we've got to manage it and deal with it. Are we there yet with all of these streaming platforms, do you think, or is there still more room to grow? And I would think, if we're not at a saturation point, it's probably a pretty good time if you've got a good story that you feel like might connect with one of these places.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of a complicated question. I think that as viewers, we're always looking for good content no matter what. And at the end of the day, it is a business. Amazon, especially, just mentioning them, I mean, they're supposedly putting $1 billion into the Lord of the Rings series, and it's slated to go 5 years. I would guess that that is going to happen 5 years no matter what. I've seen reviews that love it. I've seen reviews that hate it. I'm enjoying it. I'm good for anything in Middle Earth. I just want to see more of the world. So for me, it's just I think that in a way there is so much content, it's almost like sensory overload. But at the same time, there is so much great content as well. And I think people are going to complain about House of the Dragon, how it's not Game of Thrones, or how Lord of the or Rings of Power is not Lord of the Rings, but they're still watching. And Jeff Bezos doesn't care if you complain or not. He just cares if you're watching. And I think that it's similar. I think that I've read things where the amount of content that's getting generated, it can't fulfill that pace. And I do kind of agree with that just when you see how much money is being thrown around. But that's kind of out of my expertise area. And at the end of the day, I think if you make great content, it's going to find its place, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, Peacock. There's great shows on every single platform. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things is we have, I would say, 5 or 6 major platforms right now. But each one has started to find its own identity in some way. I feel like I can't really tell you what that is, but if you were like, this show, would be like, okay, that's a home for Peacock, or that's
Right.
Paramount Plus, as opposed to like, oh no, that's not a Netflix show. Um, so I think as long as there's great creators and great content being produced, I think it'll find its market. And one of the beautiful things about those billion-dollar companies is they're able to take a show like Squid Game and make it a worldwide hit because of the platform it's on, which was Netflix. And I thoroughly loved it as well. So I'm excited for season 2 of that. And I think that it gives, as hard as it is to find your way in those spaces, it also shows that all you need to do is kind of have that one hit and you'll be taken seriously, or you'll find a home and people that want to work with you long term.
Very good. Very good. So, Luke, as we finish up talking with you today on Page Break, if anyone wants to get in contact with you to find out more about the services you can provide to help them kind of bridge that gap from story idea and creation to possible development and production down the road, how can they get in contact with you? Where can they find out more information about Legacy Entertainment? How can they reach out to you? How can they get in contact with you to find out more information about your company?
Thank you for asking. My website is www.legacy824.com, the numbers. So legacy824.com. And my email address, which anyone can email me at, is luke@legacy824.com. Legacy Entertainment is just a very long thing to type out, so I decided to go with numbers. So anything Legacy 824 is usually the way to go and how I'm kind of branding on social media. So those are the two best ways to reach me. And I look forward to working with people of all calibers and converting hopefully people's novels into screenplays. I think that's always a fun thing to do and try to figure out how to make it as best possible version.
Luke Oberholtzer, the director, president, and owner of Legacy Entertainment. Thanks for taking a page break with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Elliot.
We want to take a moment also to remind you, if you like anything that you've seen here on the program, be sure to subscribe. Click the little subscribe box that's right over here. Be sure you click that to subscribe to miss or to get all of the content we have here on the channel and not miss anything as new episodes air. Also, you can go over here and follow me on social media. All my social media buttons are there. If you got a question or a comment for Luke, or something comes to mind that we did not address in this interview, leave it down in the comments fields below, and I will be sure and pass those questions and your information on to Luke. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for stopping by the channel. See you next time. Stay well and see you someplace soon, I hope.
Thank you.